So just before we start, as usual, we will say the prayers to invoke the blessings of all the spiritual masters. I ask all of your blessings as well. I can say something powerful, meaningful, and that can help you in your progress on your spiritual journey. We pray to the Panchatattva and we pray to Shri Shri Radha and Krishna. So please join me if you know the prayers. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitang Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitangscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. And for those of you who can, please, let's raise our hands in the air. Let's really call from the heart the Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Once more. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Even more intensely. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So just before we begin the main class, I should clarify, when people often talk to me, they say, wow, you've got such a beautiful house. It's just a background. I just want to get that out of the way at the beginning. Every time I try to come to Redbridge, it seems COVID kicks in. I remember 2 years ago, 2020 March, we'd arranged for me to come, and that was like just as COVID started, so we didn't have Zoom at that time. And then again, I was supposed to come again this year, and again COVID hit. So I don't know, maybe it's not a good idea for me to try to come to Rio. Every time I try to come, seems like COVID hits. So anyway, Zoom is good. Zoom is good. We can still have the discussions and be safe. So I wanted to start by just asking the question, who here feels that, especially as they're getting older, that time just seems to be going on faster and faster? Time just seems to be flying by. Just put yes, or either raise your hand or put yes in the chat. Right? You notice it's just crazy. Like, can you believe it? It is more than halfway through the first month. Can you believe it? It's already like January the 16th. I'm like, wasn't it New Year's like 2 days ago? How is it 16th? So time just seems to be absolutely flying by. Even this year already half the month has gone. So now I was thinking, what can we do? What is it that we need to do? So the first thing that I wanted to discuss today is about being more strategic with our time. So I wanted to just discuss, it's quite a famous principle. It's called the Pareto principle. Oops, sorry, one second, just move the chat out of the way. It's called the Pareto principle. So many of you may or may not have, I'm sure you've heard of this. It's the 80-20 principle. With the idea for us to be more effective, for us to be more strategic with our time. So there's a person called, there's actually an Italian economist. So his name is Vilfredo Pareto. I hope I said it right. Please forgive me if anybody's Italian and I didn't do that very well. So he noticed it. So he's from the early 20th century. So he noticed, as an economist, he noticed that in Italy, 80% of the land was owned by 20% of the people. 80% of the land was owned by 20% of the people, of the population. And that's how we came up with this, as we know, it's Pareto principle or 80-20 principle. So sometimes I have this realization when I'm packing. So let's say you're packing for a holiday. Who else has had this experience where you might be packing for a holiday and like you get 80% of the packing done in 20%, so yeah, 20% of the time. So like when it's just the clothes, your underwear, your socks, all those are kind of things, they're dumped in a suitcase. That's like 80% of your packing done. But then that last 20%, have you noticed, takes flipping 80% of the time. You'll find your passport, you're going to find, you know, something which is here or there, and it's like getting this, what in our family we call it kitbit. So kitbit means all the bits and bobs, all the little things, you know, you got to get the, you've lost the key for the, for the little padlocks for the suitcases. And it's like you spend like 1 hour looking for the keys. It's like all this stuff. So it's like 20% of your, if we can be more focused, if we can understand what is that 20% that gives us the 80% success, the 80% of the results, if we can home in on those things, that would make us more efficient. So that's the first thing that I wanted to look at. So that's it. If there's one thing you take away, like we'll take a few steps, there's quite a few takeaways from this session. So the first one is this: try to be more efficient with your time, because as I just discussed, you know, time is flying by. So we need to be more focused. We need to be more strategic, and let's think, what are the 20% of the things for your spiritual life? So if you look at your spiritual life, what are the 20% that gives you the maximum productivity or benefit, advancement, shall we say? So so maybe in the chat you can say, and I'll start to list them. Somebody's saying, I always pack too much and don't use it. Yep. You always plan, oh, what if this, what if this, what if this, right? You always plan for the worst and then end up taking too much and don't use half of it. Yep. Okay, so let me know in the chat, what do you feel are the most important things? Okay, so we've got rise early. Anybody else? What are the most important things in your spiritual life? Spending quality time with devotees. So just on that point, by the way, it's important to understand, yes, so the rise early, the principle there must be the sleep early. Very good. Because most people think, yeah, I'll rise early, but they don't go to bed on time. Yeah, that's the typical thing. Very good. Reading, rest, reading. Okay. So remember, these are the things that will get you the most advancement in your spiritual life. Adam says, rise early and prepare all that I need for the following night before. That's brilliant. That's really good, yes. Sorry, I missed a few here. Movement. What do you mean by that? Morning program. So by movement, do you mean exercise? so that's Tehema. Satsang, yeah, association of devotees. Morning program, attending sanghas, diarize important classes. Okay, so make notes on important classes. Yep. Making time for japa. So rather than just making time, I'm going to say doing japa. Following morning exercise. Yep. Exercise, yoga, breath work. Brilliant. Plan what you plan to do the next morning, the night before. Yep. Meditating on Om. Okay. Chant 16 rounds in the Brahma Muhurta period. So chant 16 rounds of Hare Krishna early in the morning. Ideally before the sun even rises. Yeah, these are some brilliant things, yes. So japa early. Read one Gita verse a day. Okay, brilliant. So here you've got some ideas. So that I just wanted to get you to begin thinking like this, to begin thinking that actually what are the most important things? See, the problem that we have, the problem that a lot of people, like I often deal with clients, you know, even friends, family, even other devotees. We had one devotee visit the other day, and he was just making the point that I just don't have enough time in the day. I was looking at him thinking, right, this is why we need to be more strategic. It's like, what are the 20% of the things? Yes, we don't have time. If you look at our to-do list, like for some of us, especially if you're task orientated. So there's the studies that have been done, and they've categorized people into task orientated people and kind of people who are more interested about feelings and kind of interacting with other people. And especially the task orientated people, you'll know if that's you. They tend to have lots and lots and lots and lots of to-do lists, right? And they're just, every day is about ticking it off. And what generally tends to happen, well, the problem that I've often noticed is that the to-do lists, rather than getting shorter, they actually get bigger, and they get bigger and bigger until they're so monstrous. It's like, let's be honest, it just becomes overwhelming, totally overwhelming. It's just like you wake up in the morning, it's like, oh my God, I've got so many things to do. How am I going to get it all done? You know what? I'm just going to watch TV. So almost that feeling of overwhelm actually creates the opposite. And of course, by watching TV, they don't actually enjoy it because they feel guilty. And then when it comes back to doing their to-do list, the to-do list is just as long. Yeah, or if not even longer, because now there's something else that needs to be done. So we have to start moving away from this idea. And I'm going to teach you a principle later on how to help you to kind of move away from this to-do list idea and move more towards what I'm going to term as to-be list. Okay, so we're going to talk about that in a little while. But first is understanding what are the key things from your so-called to-do list. What are the key things that will get you the maximum benefit? So chanting, reading. Now, one of the things that we haven't got on here is actually eating prasadam. Now, for some of you, it's like, what? That's like what? Sorry, 1 second. My screen sharing is paused. I'm eating prasadam. Now, why is that such an important thing as well? We may or may not realize the significance of this. Oops. So some of these things in the scriptures have been given, especially in Chaitanya Charitamrita, has been given as really important. So eating prasadam, japa, and reading one verse of Bhagavad Gita, these or reading in general, these are really, really important. And yeah, if you can spend time with the devotees, yes, and of course rising early, so that facilitates everything else. But why is eating prasadam such an important one that maybe you have or haven't realized? Is because, you know, there's that expression, You are what you eat. Now, what does that actually mean? It means that whatever food
Sorry, Nitya Prabhu, we can't hear you. You seem to be on mute. Although, I'm not sure. Maybe your mic.
Can you hear me now? Just let me know.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. Just let me. Sorry, I think the mic cable is a little bit dodgy, so I have to look into it. So I don't know where else, but I'll just rewind slightly in case it wasn't heard. So eating prasadam is so important because, as that expression goes, you are what you eat, and what that means is that what the constitution of the food, like what it's made of, when that goes into our body, it really affects our consciousness. It affects the way we think. It affects our emotions. It affects, how much energy we have. We eat very heavy foods. Of course, that's going to slow us down. So actually, eating prasadam even is such an important principle. When we look at japa, we have to look at two things there. So the first aspect is the quantity. How many rounds are you doing? Now, it's recommended we try to chant. Oh, my video is off. Thank you for pointing that out. So it's recommended that we try to chant 16 rounds a day. Now, it doesn't matter, whatever rounds you're on, whether it's one, whether it's two, if you try to do first of all, try to do something every day. Try to do a fixed number of rounds of meditation every single day. And then ideally, especially those who are ISKCON devotees, I know there's some devotees or some people who may not be from ISKCON. Then for those who are ISKCON devotees, we aim to try to do 16 rounds a day, because this was the instruction given by Srila Prabhupada. And when we do 16 rounds, we might think, okay, so my New Year's resolution is, I don't know, maybe, I'm doing 16 rounds at the moment, so I don't need to think about anything else. No, there is something we need to think about. Now that we've got the quantity, in other words, we've got up to the 16 round standard, the next phase is to think about, I'm sure you can all guess, you all know, is the quality. What is the quality of my chanting? And so the next aspect is to try to focus and think about how to better the quality of your chanting rather than the quantity. And by focusing on these specific things, so especially reading, chanting, and eating prasadam, of course, the association as well, but at least on a day-to-day basis, those three are the main ones. What we eat, what we listen to, and then what we speak, our chanting. Those three really affect our advancement in Krishna consciousness. So when we put a bit more time, a bit more focus on trying to eat better. So first of all, eat food within the boundaries of Krishna consciousness, offer the food, so it's prasadam as much as possible, and then eat that healthy food. And then try to chant better rounds, and then hear and read more about Krishna. And the more you hear and read about Krishna, the more that relationship with Krishna develops. You will want to offer your food. You will want to serve the devotees. You will want to chant your rounds, because that connection with Krishna is there. So these are some of the things to think about in terms of how to be more strategic on a day-to-day basis. And if you focus on those things rather than a massive to-do list, I've got to do this and do that, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Focus on the things that really matter, that are important. And so long as you do those things, then there's some sense of satisfaction. And like I said, we'll talk more about how to develop that mood, how to develop that to-be list in a little while. Okay, so are there any questions on that? So maybe I can get everybody, I get everybody to write down then. So just after what I've spoken there, are there any reflections or realizations? And if you want to write down then, what are the most important things for you that you have to do in order to make advancement in your spiritual life? We'll just give you maybe 30 seconds. And if there's any questions, please feel free to unmute at this point and ask. So you don't need to write in the chat. This is for you to write down in your notes. So if you get a pen and a paper or write it on your phone, and maybe you've got a notes place on your phone, and it's like really think about what is it that is going to propel you in your spiritual life. So, okay, you put here, take mealtime more seriously. Nice. Yes. Rather than just watching or something, really focus on eating prasadam and etc. Should we focus on japa quantity before quality or the other way around? Focus on quantity, because when you get up to 16 rounds, try to get up to 16 rounds as quickly as possible. Because at the point where you chant 16 rounds, there's a mercy that comes. And then it's like, it's more, you get more potency from that mercy because you're following the instructions of the spiritual master, you're following the instructions of Srila Prabhupada. When you get up to 16 rounds, you'll find such amazing things happen. Like, it's not linear. I used to think that, oh, somebody's trying 15 rounds, they're getting like 15/16 of the mercy, and then somebody who's trying 16 rounds is getting like the full mercy. It's not actually like that. It's actually exponential. So take it as almost linear. So 2 rounds is getting double the mercy like that up until 15. But then when person chants 16 rounds, it's like off the scale. That mercy that comes is next level. So I always recommend that people try to chant 16 rounds, like get up to following the orders of the spiritual master, because ultimately our advancement is dependent, is very much dependent also on the mercy of the spiritual master, the mercy of the Guru, mercy of Krishna. When Krishna sees us trying to follow the Guru's order, then obviously we make more advancement. If we focus on those three, welcome. If we focus on those 3 items, do we get better with our to-do list, or should we be concentrating on the to-be list? Good question. Ask me after we've spoken about the to-be list. Thank you, Ashwin. Good question. We'll discuss that later. Okay, hopefully you've all written now what are the key things that you need to do or need to focus on in order to for the 80-20 principle, the 20% of the things that will get you 80% of your advancement. Okay, so now since we're talking about the principle of advancement, there is let's bring it up. So there is a book by Srila Prabhupada called The Nectar of Instruction. You may or may not have heard of this book. Hopefully you have. It's almost like a beginner's guide to Krishna consciousness. And it kind of goes through step-by-step things that help us in our spiritual life. And this is just the preface. So in the preface of Nectar of Instruction, you can look it up online, Veda-based of instruction. And there's this line here, which I remember reading many years ago, and I think I made so many notes. We had I think an hour or 2-hour discussion in the Sangha just on this one point. Advancement in Krishna consciousness depends on the attitude of the follower. I'll say that again. Advancement in Krishna consciousness depends on the attitude of the follower. So this is key to our advancement. This is key to our understanding of how to advance in Krishna consciousness. So let me share some stories around that. So I'll share the first one. This is from the Ramayana. So in the Ramayana, there is a story of Lord Ram and Sita Devi got kidnapped, as we know. And then Lord Ram had to cross over to Lanka. And at that time, all the monkeys were throwing rocks into the ocean, and they were building a bridge. By the Lord's potency, then the bridge, they were building a bridge across the ocean to Lanka. So then at one point in this history, at one point, Hanuman, who is one of the strongest soldiers of Lord Ram, monkey soldier, as he was throwing huge rocks into the ocean, there was one squirrel who was there who was also throwing rocks. And Hanuman said to the squirrel, move out of the way, feeling that his service to the Lord was more important because of the size of the rocks that he was throwing compared to the size of the rocks that squirrel was throwing. Now you can imagine a squirrel, like little squirrel, what kind of size rock would the squirrel be throwing? What kind of rock would Hanumanji, you know, such a powerful warrior, big muscles, like what's it called, six-pack abs and all of that stuff, right? What kind of rocks he would be throwing. So Hanuman was feeling, hey, move out of the way. My service is more important. I'm throwing bigger rocks than you. And Lord Ram stopped him. And he said such a powerful thing. He said to Hanuman, he said, your service to me is equal to the service of this squirrel. Now, this is a bit of a almost like on a material level, it's a contradiction. It's something that's not that we're not used to from a material perspective, because what the Lord is saying there is that attitude is more important than magnitude. I'll say that again. Attitude is more important than magnitude. In spiritual life, it is our attitude that is more important, not the actual results. So in one sense, if we go back to that question, shouldn't we be chanting 16 rounds? Yes, but it's the reason why we're chanting 16 rounds is the attitude is to please is to follow the instructions of the spiritual master. If the spiritual master said chant 8 rounds a day, we'll do 8 rounds a day. Since the spiritual master is saying chant 16, like minimum 16 rounds a day, therefore we aim for 16. And is that attitude of trying to follow that is the key to our advancement, not the magnitude. It's not actually to do with the number. Like I said, if the number was 8, if the number was, 25, whatever the number is, in one sense, it doesn't matter. The important thing is our attitude to follow what the spiritual master is saying. So then he said, Lord Ram said to Hanumanji that this squirrel, he is exerting himself as much as you are. Whatever is his capacity, he is doing, just like you are doing to your capacity. So I thought this was a really wonderful principle that comes out. Attitude is more important than magnitude. It's nice because in our spiritual life, we're trying to achieve so many things. It seems like this devotee has, has done so many books. Say we're going out book distribution and somebody's done so many more books than we have. I'm terrible on book distribution, for example. So I remember one Harinam, I managed to do 1 book, and then there's another devotee who's done 80 books or something. It's like, I've only done 1 book. Like, that's so terrible. So it's not to get caught up in the externals. The most important thing is what's going on internet. Are we doing it to the best of our ability? Are we doing it with the most sincerity? And it's the sincerity that attracts the mercy of the Lord. So that's one aspect. Another story that I wanted to tell you, this is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. There's one story in the history where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to South India, and he went to a place called the Temple of Srirangam. So in Srirangam, there were wonderful devotees there, many Brahmins, sitting there reading the scriptures in the temple, really absorbing themselves. And what happened was, there was one Brahmin there. I don't have a book, I don't have Bhagavad Gita on me, but can you imagine he's reading the Bhagavad Gita, and you can imagine he's reading it upside down, and he's just like turning the pages. He's turning the page line. All the other Brahmins are there, like they're proper, educated, reading and studying hard. And they look across at this guy and think, what is this guy doing? He sits there day to day and he's illiterate. He can't even read. And he's sitting there with the book, with the Bhagavad Gita every day, just turning the pages. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu noticed that he's crying. So this sparked his curiosity. Like, all these Brahmins are studying away hard. This person is like, can't even read the Bhagavad Gita, is like upside down, but yet he's crying. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went and spoke to this Brahmin, and he asked him, like, I noticed that you're trying to read the Bhagavad Gita, and I noticed that you're crying. So the Brahmin first of all explained that although he's illiterate, he can't read, his spiritual master has asked him to study the Bhagavad Gita every day. So simply to follow the order of his guru, he takes the Bhagavad Gita and he tries his best to try to read. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked him, so, okay, but I noticed that you're crying. So then the Brahmin said something really amazing. And he said, every time I turn the pages, I see that Krishna has become the charioteer of Arjuna. Krishna, who is the supreme Lord, he's the source of everything. The Bhagavad Gita verse, chapter, I think, was it chapter 10, verse 8? Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata, aham sarvasya prabhavo mata, somebody help me out, mata sarvam pravartate. Thank you. Right? Everything emanates from me. He's like the source of everything, the fountainhead of everything, all the incarnations. He's the material and spiritual worlds come from him, and yet he is the charity of Arjuna. He's the servant of Arjuna. And what charity has to do is they are on the battlefield and they have to move obviously direct the chariot. But how does the warrior tell the charioteer which direction to go? The warrior kicks the charioteer, because it's so loud, he can't say, all right, turn left, all right, turn right. Like, especially if somebody's attacking, you have to do it like instantaneously. So the warrior kicks the charioteer on the right, the charioteer moves the chariot to the left, kicks him on the left. Imagine Arjuna is kicking Krishna. That's how much Krishna loves his devotees. And so the Brahmin is crying. Every page he's turning of the Bhagavad Gita, can't read, but every page he's just thinking, wow, Krishna is so kind, so merciful. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraces this Brahmin, and he says to him, you have understood the real purport of the Bhagavad Gita. Srila Prabhupada says in the lecture, he says, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, your reading is perfect. Like that. Why? Because he's understood actually the essence, what the Bhagavad Gita is ultimately trying to teach us. Like that. So here we can understand that attitude is more important than aptitude. I'll say that again. Attitude is more important than aptitude. It was the maybe all the other Brahmins like are so educated and so, but they haven't actually understood the real essence, because the attitude of this Brahmin, the illiterate Brahmin, was spot on. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recognized that. So beautiful. Okay, so if attitude is so important, if the advancement of the followers of Krishna consciousness, if the attitude is so important, then we need to start looking at that. We need to start understanding what is attitude. So, oops, let's do it in black for now. So if we take attitude, remember, so there's 3 parts to it. I'm only going to discuss 2 parts today, because we'll run out of time otherwise. So when we think about goals, I think it was there in it may have been there in the blurb that we sent out as the advert. So most people, when they think about goals, they go straight to the what. So I'm going to explain that the what is the 3rd part. The what comes two layers down. There's 2 layers above, and this especially is to do with the attitude. So the first question, before we jump to the what, the first question we should be asking is who? Who do I want to become? And this is where we change from to-do lists to be lists. Who is it that I want to become? Even if I do this, even if Even if I do this what over here, the real question is, who do I become by doing that what? Who do I become? So let's look into this, let's understand this a bit better. On New Year's Day, we know there's the whole New Year's resolutions. So in our advert, it wasn't a spelling mistake. We didn't put revolutions by accident, right? Most people think about, when they think about New Year's resolutions, what they do is they look first of all at the action part, or at the behavior level. And this is where we need to shift away from this. And this is why actually it doesn't work. Why you'll notice, I don't know how many of you have made New Year's resolutions, and you know, the statistics are there. I've seen, I can't remember them off the top of my head, but the statistics are crazy in the sense that, you know, people make these New Year's resolutions, and like a huge percentage, even within the first week, and definitely by the end of the first month, they've stopped doing their New Year's resolutions, because these patterns of behavior are so ingrained. We need to actually attack it from a different level. And as you may already have realized, the level is not at the what level. The level needs to be at the who level. So let me give you an example of this. So let's say somebody is a smoker. Let me just give you a typical example. And even if sometimes our devotees also, you know, have to deal with this, especially if they come from a background where they were already smoking, then they come to Krishna consciousness, and then it's hard to give up that bad habit. So whatever it is for you, yeah, maybe for somebody it's giving up meat, or giving up onions and garlic, or whatever it is. So you can just take it as whatever applies to you. So if somebody is a smoker, so in other words, their action, so take this as the action level, and take this as the identity level. So if somebody is smoking a lot, what happens is they develop the identity that I'm a smoker, and then developing the identity of I'm a smoker, of course, they continue to smoke. Now what happens is we try to, so thanks, Bajana. So less than 8% of people actually stick to their resolutions each time. It's ridiculous. And that's why often what's happened is now people get to New Year's and they're like, well, I'm not even going to make a resolution, because what's the point? I'm going to break it anyway. I'm just going to be disappointed. It's a good idea to have a resolution, but we have to turn it into a revolution. And I'm just showing you how. So thanks for that, Brijana. We've got to stop trying to attack it at the action level. And we've got to start attacking it at the identity level, which is 2 steps higher, 2 stages higher. So if we change this round, if this person, right, says, really, okay, I wanna quit smoking, or quit whatever it is they want to do, what they have to first of all come up with is, what is their new identity? So in this case, it is, I am a So I'm giving you a few seconds to think. I'm a non-smoker. So they need to start with that. Now, what's going to happen is, obviously they're not going to give up smoking just yet. So they're still, the action is still that they're smoking, correct? But because their identity is now, I am a non-smoker, what happens is this now starts to break. Even when they're smoking, when they've got the cigarette in it, it's like, I am a non-smoker, I'm a non-smoker, I'm a non-smoker. Like, what am I doing? Because now the mood, the attitude is incongruent, is not in line with what they're doing. Have you noticed that when you do something that's not in line with your values, that's not in line with who you are, don't you feel like bad? You feel like, what am I doing? Like you question, even if you're doing it, you still question, what am I doing? You don't feel good. You don't get that, bliss or satisfaction when you do something that's in line with who you are. You notice that. So as you start to change the identity, hey, I'm a non-smoker. I'm a non-smoker. I'm a non-smoker. What am I doing? So the feeling, the enjoyment from smoking starts to decrease. And then what happens is the person starts to cut down naturally, because if you don't enjoy it, you're going to do it less. And to the point where eventually they stop smoking. And then we can say truly that a non-smoker. And that's the process to do it. And like I said, the problem with the resolution is because it attacks at the action level, it doesn't address it at the identity level, you don't actually ever make that shift. Okay. So then, so let's do it now for you. So let's do it for your spiritual life. Let's say you've been doing lots and lots of inattentive chanting. Now, the problem with that is it creates a certain identity. So what could that identity be? Like, you may or may not realize this, but at subconscious level, you'll have a certain identity now that's created as a result. Where it's kind of, you just accept, you know what, I'm just whatever it is. Any ideas what that could be? So let's say the identity has become, I am, it could be something like I'm a bad devotee, or something else, like a low, a neophyte devotee. Let's say for now, we say it more directly, I'm too busy for Krishna. So what's the identity there? So can you think of an identity, Jana Sharanpur? Easily distracted. Okay, yeah. So those are characteristics. I want an actual identity. So, okay, maybe I'm an easily distracted or too busy devotee. I'm going to say something along the lines of, I'm not a devotee. Yeah. Okay. Let's take that. That's a good one.
Yeah,
that's a good one, actually. So what happens is we feel so bad, we feel so crap that we're just doing inattentive chanting. We actually start to say, I'm not a devotee. This is dangerous. Because then what happens is, imagine more and more you identify, I'm not a devotee. Then I don't know, you start breaking a principle, or you start not necessarily always chanting your rounds. You're not so fixed in your chanting. But because you start to identify that, hey, I'm not a devotee anyway, it doesn't matter, so it's okay. Do you see how that can spiral? So from inattentive chanting, I'm not a devotee, from I'm not a devotee, so many things, because you just let go. It's like, oh, well, I'm not a devotee anyway. And that becomes our excuse. That becomes our justification. It's a very dangerous spiral downwards. Thank you. Who was that? Yasmin. Thank you. And that's especially from inattentive chanting. That's why inattentive chanting, because it's something we do on a daily basis. Inattentive chanting is one of the most dangerous things in our spiritual life. And that's why I was mentioning earlier the 80-20 principle. Chanting is one of the key principles for our advancement. Okay, so now let's, so now what should we change this identity to? So how can we change that? So what you do is you say an identity with a characteristic. So let's say you make it, I am let's say I'm a focused chanter or devotee, whatever works for you. I'm just giving you an example. Okay. So now what happens is when we do inattentive chanting, that doesn't sit right. And what gradually starts to happen, because you're saying, you know, I'm a focused chanter, what starts to happen is you develop at least more attentive chanting. At least you're more conscious of it. And you don't spiral down to, oh, I'm not a devotee at all. You're like, I'm becoming a devotee. At least there's the mood of, you know, at least I'm trying. You see? So, and it's a very different mood. And it gives us a lot of inspiration and it pushes us to go further. And that's spiritual. Same with, so for example, eating onion and garlic. So there might be devotees who are trying to follow, and then with onion and garlic, it's like, oh, I'm not so strict. And just by doing that, I'm not so strict, it creates a certain identity about yourself as a devotee. Oh, I'm not a strict devotee. Then how are you going to take initiation? Like that. So it's like developing the right attitude is firstly, it needs to be there first before we start talking about actions. It's like, who do I want to be? Do I want to be an initiated devotee? Do I want to be a lover of Radha and Krishna? Do I want to be a lover of God? Well, if I do, then I damn well better start getting these things in order. You see, but it starts with the identity, not at the action level. See, that's the difference. So the empowerment comes from the identity. And it helps to keep us doing that. Okay. So that's the, so now I'm just going to ask you, we've only got a few minutes left actually. And then we'll got the second part. So let's just quickly, what is the identity that you want to have? So let's say, let's call it the New Year's revolution, not resolution. And this New Year's revolution, who do you want to become? Who is it that you want to be? Especially as a devotee. So say I am, and then say a characteristic, and then say the identity, whether it's devotee, whether it's chanter, whether it's prasadam eater, whatever it is, whatever specific identity you want to be, want to associate, or you want to develop in yourself. And it might help if you think about even what you want to do. So if somebody's got like, I want to, let's say, make a resolution that to eat more prasad rather than go out and eat at restaurants or whatever it is, eat frozen food, but they want to be more conscientious about their food, create an identity around that. You want to be more conscientious about your chanting, create an identity around that. If you want to be more conscientious about your reading, again, create an identity around that. See, that's just another point why you're thinking about that, is that some people just have this to-do list and it's like, I have to read these books. So then now I'm going to bring you to the second kind of point. So we had, the first thing is the who, and then the second thing is the why. So as I was saying, sometimes people have this thing, oh, okay, you know what, I want to finish reading the Bhagavad Gita. That's my goal this year. Okay, so that's the what. Oops. But the first question you need to ask is who. What does that, why do you, in one sense, why do you want to read the Bhagavad Gita? Who do you become? So let's say I'm better at understanding the Lord. Okay, and then the next question is why? Why do you want to read the Bhagavad Gita? Why are you chanting Hare Krishna? Why do you want to be that identity? I want to be a more focused chanter. I want to be a better devotee. Why? And the why is very, very important, because the why actually gives you the motivation or the fuel to do whatever it is you're doing. When you connect with that why, that's what gives you the motivation. Because of course, any goal you have, there's going to be some obstacle. There's going to be something that distracts you. There's going to be something that's more important. So unless you have a very powerful reason, unless you have a lot of fuel, you won't be able to overcome any obstacle that comes in your way. So therefore you have to come to the why. So the why is, like, let me give you an example. One friend who's a coach, she was saying how she was discussing with one of her clients, and the person was trying to lose weight. And when she asked her why, she said, to look better. but she wasn't really convincing about the why. So after doing a meditation, then when she saw herself looking really beautiful, then she realized that the real why is so that she could look nice for her husband and so that she had more energy to run around and play with her kids. And that was actually the real reason why. That was underneath. So sometimes you have to go a bit deeper. Sometimes you have to look a bit underneath and see what is the real reason. So what is the reason why you want to become a better devotee, a better chanter, whatever it is. And there are two general reasons. There are two general motivations. So one is to escape pain. And the other one is towards gain. So if you look at your whys, you'll actually notice this. Sometimes it's like, I know, like, for example, one devotee started going to the gym, like really enthusiastically, and found out that the reason why was because their doctor had told them they were pre-diabetic. And so they were on the borderline of being diabetics. Of course, now all of a sudden, that devotee's why for exercising and staying in shape suddenly went through the roof. He had such a much bigger reason for why than before. It was just casual, yeah, I should go, I should exercise. But now there was a real reason, and it motivated that person. So when you connect with your why, that becomes the fuel. So in this case, his why was to escape the pain of being diabetic, more than towards the gain. Maybe the looking good wasn't such a big pulling factor, but the not being diabetic was a much bigger kind of away from factor, pushing factor. Okay, so what is the why for you? So looking at your identity, what is the why for you? Krishna had the same strategy in the Bhagavad Gita. He told Arjun, you are not this body, but a spirit soul, i.e. the who first. Yes, exactly. That's actually where I got it from. The second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna starts with who you are. And then from the who naturally comes the why. Oh, you're a Kshatriya. Okay, so then why should you fight? Well, oh, you're a devotee. So why should you fight? Because I'm telling you to. Exactly. Thank you. So that's the revolution, our dear devotees. Okay, so we stop focusing. We stop focusing on the what. So before, maybe this was your focus. And I want you to change that away now. So look at it like this. The who is now your focus. You all constantly, every single day, you're thinking about who do I want to be? And from the who you want to be comes your to-be list. So it's like, I want to be a better devotee. When I think about the who, I will automatically want to chant. You don't have to tell me, you don't have to put it on my to-do list that, oh, I have to chant 16 rounds. Because when I just focus on who I want to be a better devotee. That naturally means I want to put my hand in the bead bag and chant and develop that relationship with Krishna. The to-do list becomes much smaller because there's so many things now I want to do as a result of wanting to be a better devotee. Much better. And you feel so much better as well after doing it. The why is your fuel. And the what is like your finishing line. So yes, we do have to chant 16 rounds, but the thing we're focusing on is not, oh, I have to chant 16 rounds, I have to chant 16 rounds. The thing we're focusing on is, I want to be a better devotee. I want to be a lover of Radha and Krishna. I want to be a lover of chanting the holy name. Wow. Isn't that such a much better way of looking at it than just, I need to do 16 rounds, which is, many devotees struggle with on a day-to-day basis. So it's changing it from who and why, looking at the who first, looking at then the why you want to be that who, and really getting to the deeper reason, looking at, are you trying to escape from pain or is it towards gain? Looking at deeper reasons, and then then you can identify your goal, and it's like, that's your finishing line. That's what you aim for. Okay, so that's the revolution, the change in your attitude, the change of focus. So the change of focus is not on what you're trying to do, is on who you're trying to become. So in the material world, generally the goals are all external, having a big house, having a flashy car, having a huge bank balance, having, you know, a million followers on Insta, Facebook, whatever it is, having 2.4 kids, like that's all about the externals. So the shift as a devotee is to start looking at the internals on who are you becoming, and not just the what, but looking at the who, and having that attitude, or understanding that the attitude is more important than the magnitude. The attitude is more important than the aptitude, at least in spiritual life, like that, because the Lord doesn't care about how much we earn, what size our car is, or what car we have, how big our house is, how many kids we have. He's not concerned with that. He's concerned with what's there in our heart. So if we try to focus on that, we focus internally, that's where the real satisfaction comes from. That's where the real, because as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, that we are not in control of our results. So although we have a what, we have a finishing line, that is actually not in our control. But what is in our control is who we become. That as a result of chanting, am I loving Krishna more? As a result of whatever it is that we're doing, ultimately, am I loving Krishna more? Am I coming closer to Krishna? Am I understanding him more? Like this. So this is actually the goal of Krishna consciousness. And yeah, like I said, this is the revolution. So maybe you can rewrite, for those of you who have written goals, maybe you can rewrite some of those aspects now and definitely add the who part and the why part, and then start to focus on the who. So start to make your to-be list rather than your to-do list. And the to-be list should automatically inspire you to do your to-do list. So I hope that helps. I'll just take some, so if there are any questions, I'm happy to take some questions. Just before we do that, I just wanted to let you know, like I did ask, so the Redbridge management have said it's okay. I don't have a book. I'd love to give you a book on this, and you can read and really work through these concepts. There's so many more concepts to help you achieve your goals, even spiritually. So I've developed, it's not a book, but it's a online workshop. So there's these different videos. There's these 10 videos where it goes through the like a step-by-step process from which you can turn your goals into a story. And you create that whole story where you're the hero of the story, you're the hero of this movie. You create that story, and it's like you read that story every single day. So for example, some of the key ingredients of success are you need to have a strategy, you need to have a story, and you need to have a state. So we do that in this program. We look at why is it people have low self-esteem. So if you tie your self-worth to your behavior, again, that's not a good thing to do. That brings you down. What is the goal setting format? How do you write your goals properly? So I'll just give you a hint. You write it in the present tense. Most people write their goals in the kind of future tense. And that isn't, the subconscious mind doesn't understand that, and it keeps it in the future. So you have to write your goals in the present tense. But many people don't even know these basic things. So there's a goal setting formula to help you actually write your goals. And then how does the conscious mind work? How does the subconscious mind work? And then the science behind affirmations, like that. There's many things on this course. So if you are interested, what I would ask you is to either message on this group right now, or you can take my email address. I'll put it on the group, and just you can email me, contact me, and then I'll get in touch with you. If you are interested in that course, please get in touch. I'll leave my phone number as well. And so some devotees have really have done this course. 2 devotees. One devotee did it to help him with his book distribution, but he bought the course to actually help him with his driving. So he can't pass his driving test, but he ended up using it because he bought it in November. He ended up using it to help him go out on book distribution. I was really happy. So, and then another devotee has used it to help him to chant better rounds. And he said his chanting has improved so much because it will go through this process. The who, The why, those are two aspects. There's more to it. There's a whole like a diagram that you create. Yeah, it's very powerful. So hit me with your questions.
Yeah, sure. So thank you very much for your presentation. So we've got, if you want to ask a question, just raise your hand, and then we will invite you one by one to ask your question so that everyone has the opportunity.
Have we got a question on the chat? Okay, how can we remember what we read in the scriptures, Gita, when we face challenges, situations in life? Sorry, let me just make the chat bigger. How can we remember what we read in scriptures, Gita, when we face challenges, situations in life for some time that impacts us, but yes, gradually it settles in. But how can we remain unaffected in the first go, as that gives us a feeling that we are not at all on a spiritual path? Okay, so what you're saying is, maybe we've read the Bhagavad Gita and there are some principles there that we learned, but then we face a situation and then we don't immediately follow what we've learned in the Bhagavad Gita. Maybe you said maybe it gradually settles in, but we don't do it immediately, and so that gives us a feeling that we're not on our spiritual path. In other words, we get discouraged. Okay, well, the first thing to understand there, the first thing that is encouraging is at least you're realizing. The first step in one sense is to realize that there's a problem, and then the second thing is then what to do about the problem. But some people don't even realize that there's a problem in the first place. So at least you're going in the right direction. That's the first thing. The second thing is, what you have to understand is we are conditioned souls. If you read the scriptures, read the Bhagavad Gita, read Srimad Bhagavatam, constantly saying we are conditioned. Conditioned means that we follow set patterns. Something happens, we react. Something happens, we react. That's how we're conditioned. And we're conditioned to react using our kind of material intelligence. So spiritual life is a process where we're gradually reconditioning ourselves to act from the spiritual platform. And it does take time. It doesn't mean that we're not advancing, because if you look, especially from a long-term perspective, you may not see it on a day-to-day perspective, but if you look from a long-term perspective, you are making advancement for sure. Like I remember when I first came into Krishna consciousness, and then maybe like 2 years later or 3 years later, and I looked back, not 2 years, maybe about 5 years later, and I looked back and I was like, oh my God, I have changed so much as a person, but I never realized that what in those 5 years of Krishna consciousness, because I never stopped to look back. I never stopped to reflect and look back. And then I realized, like, oh my God, how I used to be before I was chanting and how I am now. And I kind of started to tell the people, that, especially the students at universities, I was like, I don't know how I used to live without doing meditation. I don't know how I was able to function without doing meditation. It's like if you've never showered before, and then, you know, that's just normal. You smell so bad, and, you know, everything's greasy or whatever it is. You've never showered. Everything is that. Then all of a sudden you shower. Then only will you realize, oh my God, like how much advanced, like what difference it is. So sometimes it requires you to stop and just look at overall to say, actually, you have advanced a lot. But on a day-to-day basis, you may not realize that or notice that. And yes, you will react in certain ways, and it's about reflecting. And that's why it's so important. Do you know where wisdom comes from? Do you know how we gain wisdom? Is by reflection. So when we reflect, when we take time out to reflect, we read the scriptures, we understand. And then it's like when that thing happens and we don't react the way that we'd want to, we reflect and say, hang on, next time I would like to react this way. I'd like to respond this way. And it's like through that reflection, now that situation will come again and you'll have an opportunity. There you go. And that way you'll advance. So it's about recognizing it, reflection first, then recognizing, and then making the changes. But the changes have to come. And have you noticed today, we didn't look at action. We looked at identity. And that's the place from which it's got to start. It's like, I am a peaceful person. So then when somebody says something and normally we react angrily, we're like, hang on, no, no. I'm a peaceful person. So therefore I'm not going to react in anger. It starts from there. You see, but that happens gradually. A smoker doesn't just become a non-smoker overnight, cold turkey, generally speaking. Smoker gradually gives up and then they become a non-smoker. Same with you. You're gradually, but it starts with developing that identity. So whatever it is that you're upset with, start with that. What's the identity you need there? And then begin to work on that. I hope that helps. So somebody's put, regular association and reading connects you with Super Soul, so you learn to react better. Yes. And then regular reading of Gita verses start to stick out to you more and more, so you start to apply them. Yeah, nice. Okay, welcome. Another question here. I'm aiming to incorporate 80-20 for a fruitarian meal plan as offered prasadam. What are your thoughts on this eating lifestyle to be more healthier, to do active service? Every body is different. So you have to split the two words there. So every body is different. So if your body actually kind of like is suited to just eating fruits, obviously offering it as prasadam, and you're finding that you have more energy as a result, that's wonderful. And definitely eating fruits, like it's much more nutritious, much healthier, you know, it's like generally, you know, more vitamins and all that, so it's all good. Now, whether somebody's body can sustain just eating on fruits, that will depend on their body. So because every body is slightly different, we need to understand it's not necessarily one type of food fits all. There's not one size fits all. So according to Ayurveda, you know, there's different vata, pitta, kapha. So according to people's body types, we have to be careful. So sometimes some fruits don't suit a certain person, whereas somebody else it does. Like I was discussing with somebody the other day, like where if they have apple juice first thing in the morning, it ruins their digestive system. I'm sure you can guess what happens as a result. You know, you want to get out of the room because it smells that bad. But then there's other people who can eat apples, you know, have apple juice first thing in the morning. It doesn't affect them. So it's like that. Every body is different. So we have to tailor the diet according to the person. And sometimes it changes in different phases of their life as well. So be aware of that. It's not necessarily one size fits all there. I hope that answers that. But of course, eating fruits, everybody should eat fruits, definitely, in general.
Can I ask one question?
Sure. You don't need to get permission.
So one question I had was, how might we develop the right identity? In other words, how do we know we have the right who? Or how might we improve our who such that it's something which really helps us identify with, you know, that state or that being that we want to be.
Yeah, really good question. Really good question. So one way to do it, we don't have enough time, sorry, apologies. But one way to do it is to do a meditation. So what you do is, you can even do it now just while I'm talking. So if you want to have a quick go, so just close your eyes. And so you've written a particular who, a particular identity. So put a certain timeline. So whether it's 1 year into the future, 6 months, 1 year into the future, whatever it is, see yourself as that person. Like see yourself in the future. So whether it's 6 months in the future, whether it's 1 year in the future, whatever it is, see yourself as that person. Now, how do you feel seeing yourself as that person? Does that excite you? Does that feel like, wow? Like, does it bring you to tears? Does it, you know, does it give you some fuel? Or do you look at it and think, meh, like, so what? Not a big deal. That is the key indicator. So if it's meh, you know, if it's not really inspiring you to see yourself out, imagine you've worked so hard to be that person, spent 6 months, 1 year really working on being that person, that kind of devotee, or whatever it is. And it's like, you don't feel that inspired. Well, there you go. There's your answer. Whereas when you look at that identity, you know, for example, a smoker who's been trying for years and years and years, and then sees themselves in 6 months' time being smoke free, they'll be so happy, so ecstatic. It's like, yes, finally got rid of it. So whatever it is for you, like maybe let's say you know, you're a better chanter, and you see yourself now chanting so nicely. You're sitting in that one place, in that sacred space. It's early morning. You know, you're chanting so nicely out loud, beautiful. Maybe the incense is there. And it's like, that brings you to tears. Like, wow, that is who I want to be. And, you know, that's correct identity. So it's about how, when you see yourself in that identity, does it create an emotion? Does it create some feeling of wow? Like, yeah, that is who I want to be. Like, ideally, does it bring you to tears? Because when it brings you to tears, you know, that's exactly who you want to be. Obviously, it might not be that sensational, but especially as a devotee, you know, if we take the devotee ones, I'm sure some of them will really, you know, bring you to tears. Like, yeah, I really like that.
Thank you. That's very helpful.